LeBron James is the best player in the NBA, hands down. He's a freak athlete, an amazing playmaker, and a proven clutch winner with a high-level basketball IQ. However, since this last year's playoffs, there's been this narrative that LeBron just carries his awful teammates to the NBA Finals despite how bad they are. It's as if this year's supporting cast in Cleveland wasn't even a good roster.
LeBron, what you doing? That's my stuff. Why did you hold the ball? Why did you hold the ball, JR?
So this leads to the obvious question. Does LeBron James and his infinite talent actually make his teammates better? The answer is yes and no. In this video, we're going to talk about the conundrum of playing with LeBron James. There's this term going around the internet recently called the LeBron system. It's essentially the type of play style needed to play with LeBron James. I fully subscribe to this concept as I literally can see it playing out over and over again. There is no structure and no clearly defined roles, just LeBron and his supporting cast. However, what else is a coach supposed to do? You want the ball in LeBron's hands to maximize the amount of time you're using the best player in the world. And he's great at setting up his teammates for easy scoring opportunities. These are the positives of the system. The downside is that he can become so overbearing, micromanaging, and monopolizing of parts of the floor that the rest of his players need to play their game, that it becomes a huge problem. His supporting cast don't get to play their game. Like we've said before, the natural rhythm of basketball offense is sharing the ball as a coordinated attack until someone on the team finds a high percentage shot, regardless of who they are. LeBron is like a great quarterback. He holds the ball and successfully makes linear plays for his team. However, this is at the expense of true ball movement. Playing with LeBron is like writing a song with a musician who has a clear vision of what he wants the entire song to sound like, but he can only play one instrument. So the rest of the team is left trying to read LeBron's genius mind, which is not only impossible, but creates a cycle of frustration amongst the entire unit. I don't want to sound like this video is hating on LeBron. In fact, he's probably my favorite player. This is strictly an analysis to create a paradigm shift for young players to start thinking differently about the game of basketball. So in this video, we're going to analyze the various archetypes of players who fit in, excel, and fail when they're in the LeBron system. This is hopefully going to answer the question of whether or not LeBron actually makes other players better, and to see what type of free agents the Los Angeles Lakers should sign this offseason that are going to maximize LeBron's chances to succeed in the West. So what type of players do fit well in the LeBron system? Low-tier players. He's great at taking a below-average player and making them relevant. Players like Norris Cole, Mario Chalmers, James Jones, these guys were never as good once they stopped playing with LeBron. There's also a lot of his early Cavs teammates, like Daniel Gibson and Anderson Varejao, who only played well with him. Other players who do really well with him are career role players, guys who do one specific thing exceptionally well, but don't have that much depth to their game beyond that. Guys like Udonis Haslem, a blue-collar rebounder, Chris Birdman Anderson, a rim protector, he can catch the occasional lob for a dunk, and Joel Anthony, who is statistically one of the best role players of all time. These guys completely embrace their role. So in the absence of a system, they know exactly what is expected of them and what to do at any given time. Now let's take a look at players who struggled with LeBron, and there's actually a slew of them. Many players have to have their roles marginalized and sacrifice their playing style to fit in with LeBron James in order to win a championship. Guys like Kevin Love and Chris Bosh were relegated to catch-and-shoot players LeBron could just dump the ball to after he attacked the rim. But this is to be expected, and if you're going to be a good team player and collaborate with LeBron, you're going to have to sacrifice certain aspects of your game. That's just the way it is. However, there's an alarming number of players who recently played with LeBron James who either played significantly better once they left, or like absolute trash once they joined forces with him. Guys like Rodney Hood, George Hill, Jay Crowder, Isaiah Thomas were all solid players for their teams. They seemed like they didn't know how to fit in, and they made uncharacteristic mistakes. It really felt like they were trying to appease him rather than just play. And this is due to the overbearing nature of playing with LeBron. You're simply not dependent on. You're not playing in the rhythm of the game because you're not getting frequent touches, and so most of the time you're out of sync. So when you unexpectedly have to make a play, you're out of sorts. For example, George Hill missing that huge free throw in Game 1. Had he made that, none of the J.R. Smith fiasco would have happened. Jordan Clarkson looked absolutely horrible when he was with the Cavaliers, and he was a solid player with the Los Angeles Lakers. He should have been able to produce more than he did in the playoffs. I remember thinking that when we found out Kyle Korver was going to the Cavs a couple years ago, it was going to be unfair. He had just come off of an all-star season and had broken the record for consecutive games with a made three-pointer. In this year's playoffs, he looked very tentative, and he could not, for the life of him, make a three. It was also weird how a bunch of guys, once they left the Cavs, started playing better. Once Dwayne Wade left the Cavaliers and returned to Miami, he seemed to be rejuvenated and a much better player. Not to mention Derrick Rose, who was obviously a great player before, and yeah, he had a lot of injuries, but the second he went to Minnesota, he became a better player. So I hope this dispels the rumor that the rest of the Cavaliers roster was trash.
You're not open!
This looked like a Drew League team coming into the regular season, and LeBron James needs to take some responsibility in the fact that the roster never gelled. So who else fits into the system? It seems like a specific type of role player fits exceptionally well with LeBron James. And those are players who've already had success in their career and are coming towards the end of it and have had so much experience with team basketball that they understand what they need to do in order to succeed. Guys like Shane Battier and Mike Miller towards the end of their careers were perfect complementary pieces for the Miami Heat in their championship runs. They were no longer the players they used to be and had tremendous success throughout their entire careers. All that was missing was an NBA championship, and they sacrificed and were able to play a significant role on the roster. They're able to fit in because they're simply egoless. They aren't the athletes they once were, but are more wise and have a higher basketball IQ. And due to being in the twilight of their careers, they have a new sense of urgency and will do whatever is required of them to finally win a championship. However, the most essential piece for every LeBron James championship team is the archetype I like to call the cold closer. LeBron James does the lion's share of the workload for his team. This requires a tremendous amount of energy. This is the piece that was lacking in this year's team. He needed to be paired with a true alpha closer to share some of the workload. When he's won championships, it's been with Kyrie Irving or Dwayne Wade. And this is not to say that LeBron isn't a clutch player like a lot of people like to say. He definitely is. He proved that this year. I like to think of it more as like a pitching rotation. LeBron is the starting pitcher. He comes in, does the heavy lifting, and puts his team in position to win the game. However, during crunch time, if he doesn't have another closer with him, another guy who can create offense for himself, he's going to be in trouble because it becomes very predictable to read what LeBron's going to have to do. You essentially are forcing his hand. When he was playing with guys like Dwayne Wade, Kyrie Irving, and even Ray Allen, he had partners in crime who could easily create their own offense. And maybe more importantly, were willing to create their own offense. In my opinion, if you're building a roster around LeBron James, it does not matter how many former All-Stars or current All-Stars he has surrounding him. He needs one other closer and a bunch of role players who accept and embrace their roles. This way they have clear expectations and can fit into a systemless offense. This again goes back to basketball math. LeBron truly thinks in the 2K terms. He truly believes that if he brings in a bunch of guys who are all-stars on their last team, that their talents are just going to carry over regardless of the context of their previous one. However, the team can only be as good as LeBron James, and that's pretty darn good because just having him on the floor, you're going to win games. But I don't think that'll get him over the hump. Guys who are not used to playing outside of a system, or guys who are used to occupying some of the similar roles that LeBron has with their previous team, that element of their game no longer exists in the LeBron James system. So in part 2 of this video, we're going to talk about the roster that Magic Johnson and the Los Angeles Lakers are going to have to assemble for LeBron James to be successful in the West next year. And I think it's going to be very interesting the type of moves and personnel changes that they're going to have to make. These moves will ultimately enforce or debunk the theory of the LeBron James system. Anyways guys, as always, please like, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for part 2.